Hi everyone, and welcome to another Speed Trap Consulting introduction and review of our first stock location and model specific turbocharger, the GT3000R. This is an attempt really to be able to delve into a different area of the market that seems to be well in demand right now. We've had the GT3000 several years back, but wanted to be able to come with something that was much more robust and powerful and to fit a specific market need for it. We've already gone through some initial testing with this turbocharger, found some fantastic results with it. So we want to be able to give all the information that we can about the turbocharger. There's a specific video that's separate from this regarding some of the extra portions of the turbocharger in order to save time and effort. Take a look at that video to find out more information about the additional parts that we're going to be listing in the composition page. So I'm just simply going to push those out and then you can see the other video for additional information. As usual though, we go through our main points, which is engine size application, purpose, power level characteristics, composition, specifications, and drawbacks. Drawbacks is a new category because of the fact that we know that not every single turbocharger is perfect for everyone's specific need, but based upon feedback, some test fitment, and other testing parameters that we use, we just want to make sure that everyone is informed in terms of any possible potential issues that may come up with the turbocharger, because we know not everything's perfect. Let's go on. So for the engine size application, obviously this is going to be for the Subaru WRX and WRX STI. We're looking specifically at models 2004 to 2011, those that are in a 2-liter category or 2.5-liter category from the STI. That for the 2-liter category, for this turbocharger, you definitely need to have a better camshaft and valve train, use of a front mount intercooler to be able to have maximum efficiency, larger injectors, possibility use of an equal length header, good exhaust, and good engine management. For those in the STI category, the use of camshaft is not exactly necessary, but it does really help. Especially that in conjunction with larger injectors, the possibility of at least a larger top mount, if not a front mount intercooler, and those that are going to use either an unequal length or an equal length header with a good exhaust system and good engine management. The purpose of this turbocharger really is to take a lot of the same characteristics and robustness found in the TR3030R, which is a universally fit application for road race and high street attack conditions, and put it in a stock location package. We wanted to also make sure that stock location package really simulated the look and feel in terms of its fitment of a stock location turbocharger that would come from the factory. I'll point out a couple of these little points later, but what we wanted to make sure that you had understood is the fact that this is a GT ball bearing turbocharger that has that same reliability and use for and high rotational speed, and be able to put this in a stock location setup. There are a couple of caveats that you want to be careful of this, and we'll note this in the possible drawbacks for this turbocharger. For power level and characteristics, I'll first make a note to understand that when we talk about power level, especially from an all-wheel drive perspective, that different dynamometers and different testing parameters are going to yield different results. Specifically. So the purpose of being able to tell what the type of horsepower range is going to be, even with a 20% drive life loss that is typically associated with all-wheel drive platforms, is we want to make sure that the person understands that the range of power and mid-range torque that's being able to use with this particular turbocharger. So you may make a bit more depending upon the type of fuel that you use, make a little bit less in case timing or other parameters of tuning may be down. But this gives a good idea in terms of the range of power and torque that this particular turbocharger is able to give in its stock location. For this particular example, for the GT3000R, you're looking at about 460 to 530 all-wheel horsepower that's available for this particular turbocharger. The effective range for it is going to be anywhere from about 20 psi to about 30 to 31 psi boost pressure. We feel that that's very similar to what's being used in the TR3030R, and though it might be slightly smaller than the actual compressor wheel of the TR3030R, we still believe that based upon the design of the stock location, it's going to give a really good effective range of power. Let's get at the composition of this turbocharger. The purpose and composition of this turbo is really for those for high street attack or road race conditions. In other words, those that are going to be using it in a longer course than those in particularly like an autocross or a short course. We're looking at those that are like Mid-Ohio, Lime Rock, Watkins Glen, Mid-America, longer courses that are going to use and take advantage of the boxer engine's ability to make torque and extend that torque to higher upper end power. So the composition of this is going to be very simple, really. As you can see, this is a TD05 compressor cover with its boost reference in the stock location. This isn't the actual TD05 from the Mitsubishi. It is an aftermarket makeshift with that, but it is extremely reliable and usable for that. Let's break it down in a couple bit of ways here. The TD05 compressor cover uses this particular boost reference nipple, and I'll give you some specifications in terms of how large the inlet is as well as the outlet. Okay, but notice how this is using a Garrett cartridge, so it's using the same 14mm lines, return flange, and needed restrictor in order for this to be able to work properly. For the turbine side with it, this is using an 8cm turbine. We find that with an 8cm turbine housing, you're going to be able to have the best use of the 60mm exhaust wheel that comes with this particular package. Not only with that, but with several other platforms as well. Notice how it's in the same stock location configuration with this for a normal downpipe. Our turbine inlet is not ported. We feel that this is something that the individual luthier shop should be able to kind of perform themselves. We want to just make sure we concentrate on making sure that there's proper fitment for the cartridge than there is with anything else. This does come internally gated with a very large flapper door, and actually comes in right here and handy here. The actuator we won't go into a lot. Specifically, we'll just go in terms of the type of actuator that this is. This is a Go Fast Bits actuator. And the purpose of this actuator really is just to give a good broad range of power that's going to be available for this particular turbocharger. We do this on both the GT3000 and the GT2000. We do know that there's other options for internal actuators out there, or the ability to go external, so we kept it at 0.8 bar for the actual spring. Unfortunately, there's no other spring choices for that. We do know that instead it's just better to go ahead and change the actuator entirely. It does give the ability, though, to allow for different preloads, and you can be able to do it from the actuator rod here and here. So back to the meat and potatoes here in terms of composition. Since this is a Garrett turbocharger, we want to make sure that everyone is aware of the fact that with Garrett comes the same type of restrictors in use as you would with anything else. So as part of the kit for the turbocharger comes with the water fitting tubes, return flange tube, as well as a -4 AN line to fit with the 30 thousandths restricted banjo bolt and fitting that's for that -4 AN line. The meat and potatoes of it, though, for this turbocharger is, of course, our compressor wheel, which is T6 7075 aluminum 7-bladed compressor wheel. That's actually to have about 55 to 57 pounds per minute of airflow. And we put this in a 2.4-inch TD05 compressor cover with a 2-inch outlet. And these have great high rotational speed ability. So we wanted to make sure that the durability of this compressor wheel was able to actually outlast that of the compressor cover. It's always understood that any kind of replacement or repair is going to be expensive in case something happens, but you want to make sure, though, that the composition of the compressor wheel is robust enough to be able to handle high rotational speed so it doesn't flex. And if it does come in contact with the compressor cover, you have a higher probability and higher chance of survival as opposed to with a lesser quality billet aluminum wheel. Not all billet aluminum wheels are the same, so we want to make sure that this is a very high strength. What we did was we took the robustness of the TR3030R, shown here, and instead of being in a universal application, put it into a stock application. Okay, so it shrunk down a little bit so that instead of the standard inlet and outlet exducers that are used for this compressor wheel, where the TR3030R is good for about 59 pounds a minute, like I said earlier, that's why we're down to about 55 to 57 pounds a minute because of this TD05. Now, let's go into specifications. Again, this is for the inlet on this. This is actually 2.3 This is 53 millimeters on an inlet, and then 58 millimeters on the OD for this particular portion. Okay, for the outlet, you're looking at 2.1 inch. Okay, for the OD, so you can be able to fit this with the stock one. Comes with water feed lines, and specifically, we can go into the flapper door itself. Okay, the flapper door is actually 34 millimeter in diameter. Okay, so the flapper door is 34 millimeter in diameter. The internal portion of this is actually 28 millimeter and allows for bore and porting of this particular one to be able to ensure that if you want to be able to have a little more exhaust flow, you can. It's also weldable, so in case you want to convert yourself to external gate, they don't come in separate housings. You would have to be able to weld and tape to shut yourself. For the rest of the turbocharger, this is using a 60 millimeter exhaust flow, same one used in a GT 3076R, which is capable of about 35 pounds of airflow for that, which equates to about 530 wheel horsepower effectively. Let's look at the drawbacks for this. Why would someone find this a little bit questionable? Not only because of the fact that now we're using a Garrett cartridge, but because of the fact that with a Garrett ball bearing cartridge comes Garrett ball bearing responsibility. Again, there's a separate video specifically going to the Dash 4AN line, but this is why we're recommending using an aftermarket inline oil filter as opposed to using the Subaru OEM oil filter screen. That'll be described here later. So those that want to use that OEM oil filter screen that comes on the stock turbo to be able to use in this type, we truly do not recommend the use of that with anything like this, and therefore that might be a drawback or a turnaround for somebody to be able to use this. The other issue that someone may have really is the fact that the actuator only comes in a 0.8 bar spring. Again, we feel that because of their other upgrades that are available out there to use a different spring and to use a different actuator altogether, we feel that just a 0.8 bar is just fine enough for most applications using this. If you want something stronger, there are other companies out there that have direct bolt-on capability to fit onto this bracket. The other part is the fact that the initial gate that they have here is a bit small. So why is this so small? The reason is because of the fact that even though we have a larger flapper door, this is actually a little smaller because we want to make sure that there's no type of that these are going to be at higher rotational speeds, higher boost pressures on average, and therefore they don't need to bleed out nearly as much boost as most applications, especially when it comes to larger than GT28 or GT30 size. So that's why this may be a bit smaller than one may like. They may like to have it at least closer to match with this door, but we want to make sure that this door actually seals. Okay, and at the same time, because the effective range is going to be over 20 to 30 pounds of boost pressure, we want to make sure therefore that since we're not going to bleed out any kind of boost. So that's the reason for that smaller gate there. Lastly, turbine port housing. Why is it that we don't do this? Well, simple matter of cost. Anytime that you have additional services like that that require the use of your hands or any other machining, means that there's going to be some extra money involved in it. Otherwise, I think this is a fantastic turbocharger for those that want to go into high street attack or road race, especially in a WRX STI, and still want to be able to have their stock location. I like it. I'm very hopeful that we're going to have some serious positive results with it. I think you'll like it too. Thanks again, and if there's anything, please give us an email again at info@speedtrapconsulting.com. Please take a look at the parts video that has that talks about in depth more about the water ports and the lines themselves. And as always, happy boosting.